Good morning or good afternoon. I'm Lisa Branch, and this is just a little mini workshop to get you interested in still being healthy during the holidays, but not having to give up your treats. So what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to walk you through some of the ingredients that could give you some problems over the holidays and how we can swap those out. Then I am going to share with you a recipe that I have and how we can make some swaps in that. We can talk about things that have worked and not worked. And then I'm also going to do a quick demonstration of a delicious chocolate cookie that I know you're going to love. And don't worry, you don't have to write anything down. I will send you the recipe if you would like that. So if you are joining us live, go ahead and type out your comments or your questions, and I will get to those. If you're watching the replay, thanks for joining us. Again, I'm Lisa Branch, founder of the Complete Healthy Kitchen program, where I go over a lot of the concepts I'm going to be talking about really in depth. I know that these days, it is so hard to figure out sometimes what healthy food even is, because we have a food industry that slaps health labels on things. Like it says gluten-free on a donut. It's still a donut, right? So we have to just learn how to navigate food labels, know what is healthy, what isn't. If that's confusing for you, that is why I created that Complete Healthy Kitchen program, to take you step by step. I've done all the research and I'm giving you like the best. Here are the tips. Here's the things that you need to know. All the things that I wish had been in a manual and given to me when I became an adult, when I got married. And there's just all of these things that as women that we are just supposed to know. And I had no idea. And I struggled for years. I struggled with health issues, inflammation, digestive issues, you name it. And I finally am at a place where I know what foods to avoid that my body just can't handle. And I also know what foods to add to bring healing to my body. And so I hope that this just gives you a taste of some of the things that I cover in the course, but I'm going to share with you today in our mini workshop. All right, so first up, let's just talk about kind of the three main ingredients that you're going to find in baking that we can swap out for something better. Okay, the top three are going to be flour, sugar, and oil. Okay, if you live in North America, our wheat, our flour is not the same as it used to be. Right? They've modified it so it's not so tall. They've dwarfed it. They plumped up the grain. They use pesticides. There's all kinds of things. And so before, right, if you had an intolerance to gluten, that was considered celiac. But now we're seeing a great spectrum of gluten insensitivities. And what that does is the gluten, so it's a type of protein that is found in wheat and rye and barley. The gluten protein actually irritates the intestinal lining, okay? And it leads to all sorts of problems. There's things called leaky gut syndrome. There's just, your diarrhea, your constipation. For me, it was gassiness, like clear the room. Some people, it's cramps, it's a whole bunch of things. And you know what? Sometimes it shows up as redness in your face called rosacea, okay? Or as eczema. These are you need a healthy gut to have healthy skin. And so if you're finding that you have skin issues, it might actually be gut issues coming out in different areas. And so one of the things that I did, and I do recommend, is going gluten-free, okay? And it's not that bad. I know a lot of people, some people have heard about it, some people not quite so sure. The simplest thing when you're doing baking is to find a really nice gluten-free 1-to-1 blend, gluten-free flour blend, right? They're not all made the same. There are some that I've tried. Robin Hood, for example, it was so gritty. I made pancakes with it, and I just told the kids to put more syrup on, thinking that that would help with the texture. I ended up throwing it out. That was one not to do. I like the President's Choice brand from Superstore. I also like Bob's Mill, Red Mill, something like that. It has Bob in it. That's also a great one-to-one substitute. Your other option is to choose flours that aren't even like a substitute for it, and to find recipes that use things like almond flour or coconut flour. So here's a funny story. Sometimes, right, we try to swap things out, like we've heard, oh, you know, coconut flour, that's supposed to be so much better for you. And we just try swapping it out one for one. Okay, if you've ever tried that, you will know what the results are like. You cannot swap out coconut flour for a wheat flour because coconut flour absorbs all the moisture. And so if you do use it, okay, you will find that you probably produced a hockey puck. It's that bad. And so in those cases, right, you'll want to find a recipe that was made for coconut flour. Okay, so I don't recommend just trying to swap out your own, you know, oh, I have some rice flour, let's try that. My mom shared a story where that's exactly what she did. She's like, oh, here, I just put in 2 cups of rice flour. Well, guess what? She almost chipped a tooth. So when you're dealing with things like almond flour, which isn't even a grain, it's finely ground almonds, it's a nut, it is going to bake differently than regular flour, than a wheat flour or a one-on-one flour, which is usually a combination of different flours and starches to still give you the same appearance and texture and taste that wheat flour does. Okay, the second thing that we're just briefly going to talk about, if you're wondering more about this, I do go into more details in the course, and of course you can ask questions as well. Sugar. Okay, how can you have baking without sugar? Okay, there are some things that you can do. Not all sugar is equal. Okay, you have probably what most people are very familiar with is the highly refined white sugar. Okay, and the problem with white sugar is that, especially if you are looking at controlling your mood, your blood sugar levels, right? If you're pre-diabetic or, you know, someone in your family has diabetes, you really have to watch the blood sugar level because then their insulin levels are going all crazy. Those are things, so cravings and mood happen when you have a lot of sugar, right? It spikes your blood sugar, your body's hormones, bringing it down. But what happens is it, you know, it drops drastically. So then you get that, you know, that low mood, right? And then your body starts craving things to bring up the level. And it's these really quick spikes that wreak havoc on your body. What we want to do is, we're not saying no to sugar ever, but we are saying let's pair it with stuff. Either let's change it to a better sugar source, or let's pair it with something so that we even out your blood sugar response and we don't have these huge highs and lows. Okay, so some of the sugar substitutes, like some are better than others. Okay, you can go with more natural ingredients. Okay, for example, a really nice ripe banana has naturally occurring sugars in it that will sweeten your recipe without having to add sugar to it. Dates are another one that has naturally occurring sugar, but you can use it in a date rather than using the highly processed. If your recipe calls for brown sugar, coconut sugar is slightly lower on the glycemic index, which means that it's not going to spike your blood sugar as much, okay? And it bakes just like brown sugar does. Other naturally occurring sugars include honey, maple syrup. Okay, with those though, you want to make sure that you're not changing your recipe up too much by, if it uses a dry ingredient, that you're now switching it with a wet ingredient, or vice versa. Okay, so usually you want to stick with the same form, whether it's dry or wet. And if you do make a change, then you might have to slightly adjust some of the other liquids in your recipe in order to still have the same result. Okay, so the third thing that I just wanted to talk about briefly is the oil in your recipe. Okay, a lot of recipes ask for vegetable oil. Now, I have a question for you. What kind of vegetable makes vegetable oil? It's kind of it is made out of plants, which is why they call it vegetable oil, but I don't know any vegetables that produce oil. So this vegetable oil is one of those oils that is polyunsaturated. Okay, we can take a little bit of a dive into the chemistry behind that, but basically what it means is that the chemical makeup of a polyunsaturated oil is that it in the bonds, right? It has lots of poly, means lots of free bonds that are kind of easily broken. So when you heat polyunsaturated oils, right, parts of them can break off. And the broken off bits, that's what a trans fat is. It's the broken off bits from the polyunsaturated oil. Okay, and our body does not know what to do with trans fats. That's why they're so dangerous, and that's why they've been eliminated from our food sources. The number one way that we were consuming trans fats was that we were taking our polyunsaturated fats, like vegetable oil, any of your seed oils, and we were bringing them up in temperature, right? We were deep frying with them, or we were turning them into margarine. So we were making something that was liquid and we were making it shelf stable into a solid. And so in order to do that, you have to bombard the oil with hydrogen atoms, because it's the hydrogen atoms that connect and bring those bonds down. So when it's like this, it's a solid at room temperature. And what's like this, it's a liquid, it's free flowing. And so they would hydrolyze or hydrogenize. They would hydrogenize, bombard the oil with hydrogen atoms, but this happens at high temperatures in order to bring it into a solid, which then produce all of these little trans fats. Okay, so frying your food or using things like margarine, okay, those are where, so why do we care? Okay, what does your body do with the trans fats? It fights them off. So it's going to cause inflammation in your body because that's your body's response to some unknown substance. Okay, it's going to you're going to be finding that you have inflammation. Inflammation usually starts in the digestive tract, but it can go all over. Some people find that they're, just a little bit puffy in the face. For me, I found that my hands really started to ache, and I wasn't able to lift plates out of the cupboard, a jug of, a container of milk from the fridge, and even chopping vegetables was really hard. And so I had to work on my inflammation. And one of the things that I did was get rid of the vegetable oil, the grapeseed oil, and all of those, okay? I have a whole module on oils to take you through that. But basically what we're looking at to substitute out the vegetable oil is to choose either a light olive oil, or you can melt some coconut oil so it's liquid, so melted coconut oil, or you can also substitute an unsweetened applesauce because the oil really is there to add moisture and the applesauce will add your moisture. Okay, so next up, I'm just going to take you, like some of the things that we just learned, I'm going to take you through how to make one of your family favorite recipes a little bit healthier. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to bring up my recipe. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. All right. Share. There we go. Okay. So here's just an example of how you can swap out that harmful vegetable oil, your refined sugars, and sometimes dairy products. Again, dairy is one of those tricky things. Research shows that 60% of Americans have an intolerance to lactose. Okay, so I know at our house years ago, and I share this story in my program in a bit more detail, but my daughter kept saying, "Mom, I don't feel good." And she got to an age where, because I asked the family doctor, I said, "Is there a test that we can do for lactose intolerance?" And she said, "No, you just have to eliminate it for about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, and then bring something back and see how you feel." Well, she was of the age where she was kind of tired of the headaches and just a general not feeling well. She didn't have specific cramps or anything like that. It wasn't right after eating it. She just felt unwell for years. Well, she agreed. We took out all the dairy. 3 days. 3 days later, she said, "Mom, I feel better." Okay, so the proof is in the results. Okay, so for us, we do almond milk at our house. We kind of got rid of the dairy milk. So here's an example of gingerbread muffins. Okay, if you need something for the holidays, here's a really nice recipe for gingerbread muffins. And yes, I will send it to you if you would like it. Okay, so here's an example. This recipe actually was pretty good to begin with. It was using a very ripe banana. Okay, one of the things that you could do is you could choose organic bananas. Okay, that's an option. Same with the egg. It asks for an egg, and you could choose organic eggs. I really like the omega-3 eggs because omega-3s are one of the healthy fats that we have an imbalance in our system. So those polyunsaturated fats, like vegetable oil that I mentioned, they are very, very high in omega-6s. And our body wants to be in a certain ratio, a certain balance of omega-3s to omega-6. Well, our diet, right, if you eat a lot of processed food, is going to be skyrocketed omega-6s. And so we need to change some of those omega-6 oils and fats and bring up the omega-3 oils. Okay, so you're going to find omega-3 in a lot of different things. I'm not going to go all through it. Otherwise, this is going to be like an hour-long workshop. Okay, but you're looking at things like you're going to find omega-3s in your salmon, in your nuts and seeds. You can, find supplements for it, chia seeds, all those kinds of things, high in omega-3s. So for eggs, you can get omega-3 eggs. All right, so so the spices, all fine. Okay, those are sounding really good actually. So here's the half a cup of vegetable oil. And so my suggestion is to swap it out with either coconut or olive oil or half a cup of unsweetened applesauce. And again, you want to make sure that your applesauce is unsweetened because most of the applesauce out there is sweetened. And I don't know why. Apples are naturally sweet. Okay, so we don't have to keep on adding more sugar into our diet. And you know what? I would actually take out this third of a cup of granulated sugar. That's just white sugar. The banana adds the sweetness. And so again, you can reduce sugar when you're using a ripe banana. Okay, if you're using a green banana, not so sweet, the ripe banana will give you the sweetness. And then a third of a cup of dark brown sugar, I swap that out with the coconut sugar. Again, hear me out here. Sugar is still sugar. Okay, but some sugars are better than other sugars. And then there's also sweeteners. And what do we do with sweeteners? Okay, I talk about that in the course, and I don't have time to go through all of the different sweeteners. Some of them are a little bit gritty. Some people, again, the ones that end in tol, like xylitol and sorbitol, and those are sugar alcohols. Some people react to those. Okay, and it kind of, it makes them gassy or bloated or some digestive issues. Okay, so you need to be aware of and listen to your body and how it responds to some of these things. So I like doing things like the coconut sugar, using honey or maple syrup, but recognize just because it's refined sugar-free doesn't mean that it is completely sugar-free. Okay, so you just have to be careful of that and watch out for that and make sure that you're understanding the the language. So there are certain sugars that I absolutely will not tolerate in my food. High fructose corn syrup is one of them. Okay, that is like even sweeter than regular sugar, right? And it's made from, corn is the most genetically modified crop that we have here in North America, and it's made from highly refined corn. And it's going to spike your blood sugar, and it's nasty stuff. But you know what? It's in everything. Once you start reading labels, you start looking at things. And so that's why we make a lot of food ourselves at home, because then I can definitely choose what ingredients that I have. I know some people have asked about agave syrup, because agave, well, that sounds healthy. It's from a fruit, right? I don't use agave syrup because, again, I've looked at the glycemic index. And again, what that is it's a measurement of what it does to your blood sugar levels over a period of time. Agave syrup is right up there. Okay, it will really spike your blood sugar. So there's better and other sources of sweetness that you can use. I like, for powdered, I like using monk fruit. Okay, I also have used, there's a brand called Swerve. I've tried the xylitol. There's different kinds that you can choose, and depending on the recipe, sometimes they're seamless. A friend was commenting that she used a granulated sugar Swerve in a meringue, and it wasn't quite the same because it was a little bit gritty. Okay, so they're not all made the same. All right, and then finally, the all-purpose flour. And in this particular case, just choosing a 1-to-1 gluten-free flour blend that's already made, that's a great choice for muffins. The easiest thing, like for this swapping and this substituting, is when you're making your own muffins and when you're making your own loaves. Okay, you can very easily take a family favorite recipe, a banana bread, a muffin, and change that into a healthier version. Okay, so you don't have to give up your favorite recipes if you're going healthy. And by making some of these substitutions, they're never even going to know. Okay, they're not going to know. You're not changing the taste or the texture that much for them to say, hey, wait a minute, what did you do with my grandma's banana bread recipe? Okay, you can slowly make some changes and share that with them. All right. Up next, okay, now let's talk about baking, okay, because the holidays, there's so much baking that's going on. I'm thinking like gingerbread cookies, sugar cookies, those chocolate turtles, shortbread, ginger snaps, all of these yummy things, okay? And so some people ask if they can take a favorite recipe that they have and modify it, okay? Cookies, I feel, are a little bit trickier because take, for example, a sugar cookie. What's in a sugar cookie? Sugar, flour, butter, vanilla, and I don't know, like a little maybe baking soda or something, right? Like there's not much to it. So that one's really hard. I don't know that you could make a sugar cookie, with just sweeteners and it still be the same. So my suggestion is to find a completely new recipe. Find one that is designed for almond flour, for example. Find one that is designed using coconut flour. Okay, don't try to swap those out for your cookies, or you're going to end up with a whole tray full of hockey pucks and you'll be disappointed, right? You'll have ruined the taste or the texture with those. So some of the places that I have found to be really helpful for finding cookies and other kind of treat recipes, you can look at food blogs that are paleo. So what paleo means is it's grain-free and refined sugar-free. So I have found that a lot of the paleo recipes use almond flour, and they will use things like maple syrup or honey for their sweeteners, okay? Another thing that you can search up is you can look for keto recipes. So again, keto is your low carb, high fat. So they're going to use sweeteners. They're going to try to keep it like sugar-free. And they're also not going to be using, wheat or grain in their recipes. Okay, but you will find, right, that the fat content is higher because that's what they're going for. So it really depends on what you want, what is working for you in your body, what your health goals are as to kind of which recipe way that you want to lean. So what I'm going to do is a quick demo, and yes, you will get this recipe, so don't worry, but I will go through it. And I'm just going to pull out my recipe. All right. And all right, checking for messages or questions. Okay, so this one is a fabulous, like your kids are going to love it if you love kids. You're going to love it. You're probably going to make a couple batches of it. It's a chocolate cookie and it's really simple. Okay, so what we're going to do is I've got all my ingredients here. It has 1 cup of almond flour. Okay, so this is going to be an almond flour recipe. And if you're new to almond flour, like I said, it's just finely ground up almonds. So the only problem, right, with doing cookies that have almond flour is if you have kids and if they're in a school that is a nut-free zone, you can't send these ones with the kids to school. So this is an at-home treat. Okay, next up is 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. Now I want to clarify, like I call it cacao because cocoa is, some of it's the same. I think it depends where you are, but I just want to make sure that you're not choosing like something that's like a hot chocolate mix, which has sugar mixed into it. Okay, this is just the pure cacao and 2 tablespoons. Okay, that's going to make our cookie chocolatey. And then a 1/4 tablespoon of salt and 1/8 of a teaspoon of baking soda. Now, how did I do 1/8? Honestly, I took my 1/4 and I just like dipped it in so I could see that it was about half and then scooped. Okay, I don't have 1/8 of a teaspoon, so I just do half of a 1/4. Okay, in those go. All right, next up we have 1/2 cup of chocolate chips. So again, we don't need a lot of sweetener or sugar in this because you can probably hear my dog who just found the cat. The joys of doing live. There's going to be enough sweetener in the chocolate chips that you don't need to be adding a lot of sugar to the recipe. Okay, a 1/4 cup. And don't skimp on the chocolate chips because this is what makes these cookies a little bit fudgy. Okay, in they go. And then we are going to do 1 tablespoon of sweetener. So if you don't have any, go ahead and use sugar. Okay, I have some monk fruit. It looks just like white sugar. Okay, my kids don't know. Shh, don't tell them. Okay, 1 tablespoon and it goes. And then I have almond milk. Okay, and so depending on what you want to do, so start with 2 tablespoons of milk. Okay, I'm choosing almond milk because we're dairy free. And you can, so it needs 3 tablespoons of liquid. So here's the thing, for your sweetener, if you did maple syrup or honey, then you're going to do 2 tablespoons of almond milk. If you did powdered, like what I did, okay, then you're going to do 3. Now, if you're following, say, for example, keto, where they're wanting to increase the healthy fat content, then you're going to do 2 tablespoons of the almond milk, 1 tablespoon of melted coconut oil. Okay, so there's some options here. And you can kind of hold it back and see how liquidy it is and decide how much that you need. I'm just going to pour it all in. Okay, and so you're going to bake this at 325 for 11 minutes. And depending on how big your cookies are, it's going to make, I get a dozen out of it. Okay, I do an even dozen. So I'm just stirring this up. And it shouldn't be too crumbly, like there shouldn't be any leftover little bits in it. If you're not, then see, it's kind of like sticking to itself here. And form it into a nice little ball. Okay, if it's not doing that, then go ahead and add a splash more of your almond milk. Okay, so really I'm just stirring it to make sure that it is consistent and uniform. Okay, and one thing that I do like is I got a cookie scoop. Hey, I like this because all my cookies, like one thing, I don't have to get my hands all dirty, it just scoops, and I have my cookie tray here. and I can just put it on right onto my tray. My hands stay clean. My cookies are all basically the same size, which is nice. That means that they are going to cook uniformly. My kids, I have 3 kids. They're all teenagers now. Yes, they still eye which cookie is bigger. I don't think that they'll ever grow out of that. Okay, and then when your tray is all full, what I do with these is I just give them a little palm press and I just squish them a little bit flatter. I don't want my tray to flip over. All right, okay. And so I'm going to fill that up, squish them a bit. They are delicious. I hope that you give these a try and let me know how they turn out. And what I'm going to do is, let me just see. I was inspired. I found a recipe for healthy chocolate turtles. Okay, so you know the ones with the pecans in them, a little bit of sweetness, drenched in chocolate. Okay, I'm going to do a Facebook Live next week. And we're going to make chocolate turtles, and I will share that recipe too. So I hope you can join me for healthy chocolate turtles. I'm so excited. I really crave those at Christmas time because they're everywhere. And now I'll make them myself. I'm okay with that. And I will have a little bit of indulgence with that. So that is our live mini workshop on how to change up some of your holiday treats so they don't taste healthy, but you can make a few of those swaps in order to make things better. Okay, you can find a new recipe to try out to just completely change. So someone asked me and they said, do you just change all the ingredients of like some of your holiday treats, or do you like do no baking? I think I might be fired as a mom if I did no baking. I think there's at least in our house, there is an expectation. And so what I've done is for a lot of it, I've done 2 things. One, I don't make some of the recipes I used to. I don't make the sugar cookies anymore because it's just sugar. Okay. And if I make other things, no, you know what? Nobody really notices. And if they do really want some, there's enough Christmas parties that the kids go to that if they want a sugar cookie, they can choose a sugar cookie. Okay. I'm not, I'm not staring over their shoulder, making sure that they choose only healthy things all the time. Okay. But in our house, we do the best that we can with what I'm serving them up. So some recipes I've just said, no more. Usually though, is I try to find a healthier version or substitute. So I do have a ginger cookie, sparkly ginger cookies they're called, that I love because they actually have freshly grated ginger in them. If you love ginger cookies, these ones are the best. And I make them every year, just around this time. And they are so good. If you want that recipe, then send me a message and I would be happy to share my sparkly ginger cookies with you. And I think that they will stand up to whatever other ginger cookies that you've been having because the flavor is so potent. It is so refreshing because it's fresh. And that really does make a difference. So I hope you have enjoyed our mini workshop. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you learned a few things. If this is something that you're like, oh, I wish I knew more about that, then I do invite you to get in communication with me. I'd love to tell you more about the Complete Healthy Kitchen program. It is a 10-week online course that you take at your own pace. There's modules there that are broken up that you can fit in the little learning lesson. It's like 10 to 15 minutes. You can listen to it as an audio, as you're driving, as you're doing the dishes, or you can just kind of sit down and go through it. It has healthy recipes that you get to make. You get to eat your homework, okay, and start building up some of the skills in the kitchen. If you're not sure how to cook healthy, we go through that. Lots of video demos. And I think the best part, well, there's 2 best parts. One, there's a weekly coaching call. Okay, so you have someone to ask questions to. and I'll do the research and I'll come up with here's why, or here's an answer, or here's some suggestions, or, so you have someone to journey with you. Actually, you have a community of people who are also committed to making those small changes in their health journey. And it's nice to know that you have support. And here's the other one, accountability. Sometimes I have really good intentions, but unless I have either somebody kind of like pushing me along, right, and saying, hey, have you done this? Or, I feel accountable to them, well, I better show up at the coaching call and I better have done the next module, right? So unless I have somebody who's holding me accountable, or I've invested in myself and I'm like, hey, I want to be serious about this, I'm committed to it, I have paid for this course, okay, I want to be accountable to that, to the learning, because here's the thing, these are lifelong skills that we're learning together. Once you know about healthy food, how your body responds to it, then you can make choices every day when you go grocery shopping. When here's a new product that looks really good, you can flip it over and take a look at the ingredients and make a decision for yourself whether it really is healthy, or if the food industry, if the marketing department has done a really good job and made it sound really good, but not necessarily great for your body or your health. Okay, so that is the Complete Healthy Kitchen program. I would love to work with you. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you have very Merry Christmas, and we will be in touch in the Facebook group, How to Cook Healthy. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.